And we are live, and welcome to another episode of the Touring Fan Live. My name is Anthony Krisowitz, and I am excited is just a word that I can think of. I am beyond that. My guest tonight, Jason Hill. Jason Hill is, and I got so many stories to tell this guy. But Jason Hill has been someone I really wanted to interview for a while. I didn't think it was possible, but I emailed him. He emailed me back real quickly, said he'd do the show. Jason Hill has credentials of doing music composure for some of the top industry. Everything, fucking you name it, this guy's done it. I mean, be realistically, but when I think of Jason Hill, for me personally, it's the lead singer of Louis XIV. There's a lot of things in general with that album. The best little secrets are kept from 2005. But before we break down everything, Jason, thank you so much for taking time out of
Or,
your busy schedule to come on the show. How you doing, brother?
or thanks for having me. This is great. I'm excited.
Dude, this is you know, the reason I reached out to you because it's been a while.
Yeah.
My wife made me go through my clothes, and I have more band shirts than any person that I know possible, hundreds.
Sure. Yeah.
And I saw Louis XIV a ton of times back in 2005 and 2006.
Hmm.
And I had gotten a Louis XIV T-shirt at one of the concerts, and it was a large. Now my ass ain't fitting in a large T-shirt anymore. Like I can barely get it over my fucking neck. But when I was going through it, I couldn't get rid of the shirt. I was like, well, maybe one day I'll fit in it. But I was
Sure.
like,
I have
damn.
I have a that I can't get rid of. Like these old New York Dolls shirts or this or that. I'm just they're like pretty much like a girl's shirt now. I can't. What do you know? Anyway, yeah.
Oh, dude, it really is like it's just I don't know like band shirts things. It just brings back memories from that moment. But Louis the 14th for me and the best little secrets are kept. Like I remember there's a radio station locally, WNRN, had the song "Finding Out True Love Is Blind," and I was hooked. When I heard that in my 1991 Eagle Talon, my little 5-speed shit car, and I'm like, this is a band I want to be in. Like it was just that was the definition of sex, drugs, and rock and roll to me. Like that music was exactly the band I wanted to be in. And I waited in line to get that album at a record store when it was released.
So
I own multiple copies of it. It's something that is like it just. I ended up breaking up with a girl over it because she thought I was a pig for listening to the album, um,
yeah,
and
we
it
got
worked out because I'm happily married with 2 kids now. So I'm glad she's gone.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let me ask you about Louis XIV because
Sure.
I first saw you at HF Festival in 2005 on the main stage. I was front row for that with my
Yeah.
buddy Paul, and dude, you guys were just rock stars. The way you played, the way you sang, the way your music's about. How did Louis XIV come about?
Well, we were three of us in that band were a part of like a six-member band that was called Convoy. That we were signed had a signed record deal in this whole bit, and we owed them another record, and we were broke as can be, and I still can't believe that. Like we basically they owed us like 75 grand, which would have been everything in the world. I could have like we could have survived for years off that. The three of us. Realistically, if we would have just given them a record, we had a record done. There was a record done, but I wasn't happy with it. It was sort of like we had too many elements. A musician could put so many elements together. Like you could always add more stuff, more melodies, more layers, all this sort of stuff. And we had just gotten into this place where I felt like that was happening. We weren't happy with the record label. I wasn't happy with the direction of the band. I just wanted something to be different. And my father had a stroke too. He didn't pass away until many years later, but he had a stroke. And I remember really being focused on Van Gogh and thinking Van Gogh did all his work in 10 years. And I remember having this sort of epiphany moment of, if I was to die tomorrow, have I done the work that would make me, feel, fulfilled? And the answer was no. And I thought I had so much to learn, so much to do, and I really wanted to do raw, to scale things back. And so Louis the 14th really came about one morning. I had this like just epiphany where I wrote down. I had this idea about this sort of character. Initially, it was sort of like this concept record about this kid that begins to think he's Louis the 14th, and it was like a movie to me. And this was actually the first record, the one before Best Little Secrets Are Kept, that had some of the same songs on it, but one that we just sort of put out ourselves. And I remember I wrote all the songs down, the titles down one morning, and went up. I was living with Brian at the time, and I said, like, let's write this record. Like, here, let's write a song a day, and we'll go to the studio, and then we'll like, basically, here's the song titles. Each day we'll write a new song to each of these titles, and in the evening we'll track it, and then we'll have a record in 10 days. And we'd gone to France and done all this sort of stuff, but like, really it was about that initial inkling of a thing, that idea. And it was just like, it was, so we went into the studio I have the machine here, the initial record, most of it was done on the 16 track tape machine, and wow, just recorded a record. And the whole thing was like scaled down. It was like, if we had any more than 4 elements at a time, we had to take one out. Like, all right, like 4 was at a time. If we were going to add one, we had to take one out. It was like that whole thing, like, there could be strings were one. You could have multiple strings, but it was going to be all this sort of thing. And that was like the philosophy that carried on through. Eventually, we would, start adding lots of stuff on Slick Dogs and Ponies, this and that. But like, initially it was make it raw as can be. And it was so fun, like, so we made this initial record, and then sort of came back to California and all this sort of stuff, and started just sort of selling it and putting it out. And then I started kind of working on my solo record, which ultimately Paper Doll and Pledge of Allegiance and Find Out Truth is Blind was kind of going to be my solo record. Okay. And but because they were all done within like 3 days, and most of, like, if Paper Doll was completely ad-libbed, the vocal was like, it's one of those brilliant moments. I had one of those recently where I just ad-libbed one of my favorite songs off my new solo record, which is like, I just pressed record and just started singing, and then you're just sort of like take it off, and you're like, holy fuck, how did this happen?
Wait, so Paper Doll, it just came, it was like, that's a one take?
There's only one little correction I think I do where I like change one word or something. But there's even one part. It actually, and Pledge of Allegiance was very similar, because there's one part I remember that I ad-lib that I kept it in where I go, I say something like that. That's not even a phrase. It's not even words. It's just bullshit. And it stayed in there. It's always funny to look online when you see what people write. Like, just people write your lyrics out. Yeah. They're always wrong. But like, but for that part especially, is always funny. It's like, what do you think I say? Because I don't say shit. But like, those 3 songs were sort of the genesis of really what started becoming the sort of like a lot of the greatness of the Louis XIV stuff, which I thought was just sort of this, not the great, but it was like that, the sex appeal stuff, I suppose, like those 3 songs. And a lot of it, I was just trying to make my girlfriend laugh at the time, or just like get a kick out of it. It was just sort of like literally me writing. It's fucking probably slightly gross, but I was probably relatively naked because it was hot and I didn't have air conditioning. I would shower with a hose connected to my sink at the time, overlooking a Shell station, because I didn't have a shower. And I lived above my friend's studio. That was kind of my studio because it had a bunch of my gear in it. But I basically had all my gear in this little room with a futon in the corner. I was in my 20s. I was just like, I was broke as can be and happy, whatever, because I had all this gear. Because my grandfather had actually given my father a car. He couldn't drive the car now because he'd had a stroke. So my dad gave me the car, and I gave the car to the bank and got $20,000 to buy a bunch of equipment. And so that's how we sort of were able to make this stuff. So that one week came about where those songs were written, and this girl named Lindsay Troy came over one night, and I said, why don't you sing this part? And she sings a little part on Find Out Truth is Blind. And Brian came over and helped me write the chorus of it. And then it became, well, we need a band, so this might as well just be Louis XIV. Like it might as well, because we made this other thing that had some rad stuff. And who else was I going to be in a band with but my best friends? And so let's just do this anyway. So, and so then it became, and then we flourished it, or we started really building off of it. But that whole record was just done in my little room, or it was like a fairly decent sized room, but the place where I was living without the shower, but that's how, like, and then Louis XIV. The great thing about that, it was like that was one of those stories where we actually took off on radio without having a record deal. We were number one at pirate radio in LA, at Live 105 in San Francisco, K Rock at one point in LA, San Diego 91X, and like some like a couple other stations like Arizona or something like that, without a record deal, without the record being available, and which was kind of like slightly the hardship of the record, because all of those stations played Finding Out True Love Is Blind from, I believe it was Al Guerra, and I could be fucking that up because I think he was the first person in San Diego to play it.
Jesus.
I think so. I'm sorry if it was somebody else. I'm really sorry, but I think he just was like playing it on like his live show, and then it started taking off. It was one of those like old school '70s style like stories about a song actually taking off. There wasn't any promotion about it, and it just hit all these things. But then we signed a record deal with Atlantic Records, and eventually Best Little Secrets Are Kept came out, but almost a year later, or like a long time later. And England had already been playing it. England, Zane Lowe had been playing it, Marianne Hobbs over there, and like Radio 1 or, one of those things. So they played the hell out of it too. So by the time it was released over there, it was the same thing. Like, oh, we were playing this last year, so it was kind of a weird catch-up thing, and ultimately like made it so it probably wasn't as big of a hit as it could have been, because a lot of radio stations already played it. But
I just remember Finding Out True Love Is Blind, 2004. The single was hot in Charlottesville, Virginia, on WNRN, which is a local. They don't pay. It's one of those like college radio stations. It was hot as.
Before it was even released, so before it was like even on Atlantic and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so it was just a hot thing, and I remember because it had like the top 10 unheard of sounds, and it was just that was how I was pushing through, and I just remember getting hooked on this. Then I got the album, but to me, like I remember distinctively the moment I put on the album. Track 4 comes on, God Killed the Queen, which to me is the fucking definitive. Like, to me, those guitars and the way they play each other and the way that it is, they bounce off each other, the way that is all put together, I'm like, if I could, now I was in a band nowhere near as talented, but I was like, this is the band I want to be in. Like, I just was like, at that time, I'm a guy, single, I'm like, listen, this music is going to get me laid. Like that was the fucking first thing I thought of. But God Killed the Queen.
That was good,
God Killed the Queen.
That was the thing about that was kind of what like Brian and I started really doing, which was really great, was this back and forth. Like, and it was the closest thing to it was sort of what the Stones do. We just did a different way of it, where it's sort of like, you're just it's just like we're back and forth, and we would really have a lot of fun with that, and we really developed that really great, where it was just this push and pull constantly, and that was some of the most fun about playing, was just Brian and I back and forth, with Jimmy and Mark just killing it behind us. I mean, at the time, we were confident bastards. I literally thought we were like the best band on the planet at the time. Like we were our favorite band, and it felt great to be in that thing, because I thought we were very original. We were doing things that other people weren't doing, and we had chemistry. We could just get on stage and we because we had that sort of audacity and that confidence that we were doing something that was unique and original, and we got shit for being chauvinistic. I didn't think we were. We were just talking shit and having fun. I mean, we were just sort of being like, confident dudes or whatever, but, and just playful, but I loved that, walking on stage at the time thinking we're going to blow off everybody else that's been on this stage tonight. I mean, I know it's super arrogant and dickish to say, but I felt that, and it allowed us to put on good shows, I think.
Jason, the first time I saw you was at HF Festival in Maryland. You were one of the opening acts for the show. Me and my buddy Paul, who's commenting with some other people on the show, we slept on the concrete outside of Raven Stadium to make sure we were fucking front row. I have a picture of me slim with hair in front of this. Dude, I'll never forget. You guys came out. Like, and I'm like, it was different, and I haven't seen it since. You came
Yeah.
out like rock stars. You owned the fucking stage. You didn't
Yeah.
say boo to anything. You didn't bullshit like, hey, Baltimore. None of this. You played
Yeah.
the music. You
Yeah.
rocked out. People were having a good time. It was a big ass party in the crowd. You left
Sure.
off, and I looked at my buddy Paul. I'm like, that's the fucking band I want to be in. Like, you
Yeah.
guys emulated what rock and roll was at that time. Because at that time, indie music or alternative music or rock music wasn't that. It was, that was still that weird time of emo and people wearing
Yeah. Yeah.
makeup. So you defined something different and pulled something out that was unique to yourself. It was amazing. The album was great.
I'm
Like I said,
glad you're. We felt it. We felt. We thought we were doing something totally original and interesting, and we were just we felt really hot. I suppose just like we were bringing something new that the world wasn't having.
Sure.
Just it felt. Uh, yeah, no, it was great. I mean, and I loved the mystery of it. We just come out and just slam. It was like that was like, I would go walk out and do this stuff and like like it was just like throwing shapes up and it was just but that was like we enjoyed the stupidity of the radness
Sure.
of it. But the truth is like we felt it like we felt like we were conjuring up all these like things. Like we were just on fire for that time. I don't know. They really. I mean, one of those times where you look back and you go, "Fuck, we were pretty damn good." At the time, I don't mean. I know that sounds super arrogant, but like, I thought at the time we were. And we would play on all these festivals and all these people, and it was like, I thought we were blowing the fuck out of everybody on stage, but and I know that's totally arrogant, but we were at the time. I really think that we were because everybody was doing other things, and I know a lot of other bands thought that too. That so
Well, I believe that you were blowing shit up because I totally bought into it.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, because when you believe that when you really believe in what you're doing, it shows. And I think any rock and roll band has to have that confidence and that audacity to go up there and think that any of it matters.
Sure.
Right? Because you're just going up there and playing a stupid ass show, but like none of it matters. You're not saving the world with your music, but you really kind of might be saving or like, music does save people and does
sure.
things. But I didn't think we were doing that. I just thought we were just kind of kicking ass. And at the time it was important to me, so like there has to be, in order to be good, you have to go out there with confidence and audacity. You have to like believe in what you're doing. It's only in hindsight that you can look back and go, it wasn't important at all. I mean, it's not, whatever, people were starving, this or that. And now, during COVID, we know that, people are dying, all this. So this rock and roll band being, really happening in one night doesn't matter. And, they're in Detroit and they're killing it or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, but you have to have that confidence that it does matter, that you are doing something important for it to really work. Otherwise, it's kind of boring, So I'm glad that we did have that sort of confidence when we would walk on stage and all that. It's not that we thought we were the best musicians in the world. I'm a far better musician now than I ever was during then. But we just had something together that was the sum of all of us together. That was really interesting. And I thought the songs were interesting and they weren't cookie cutter, like Atlantic Records, would constantly bitch that the song's like, where's the chorus? Like Paper Doll doesn't have a freaking chorus. Neither does Pledge of Allegiance really. Like, or any of these, half of them don't, and it was sort of like, what do you mean? I'm not changing it. I'm not changing the song. What do you mean? Why? Now I kind of look at it and go, yeah, well, we didn't have a chorus or this or that. But it was sort of at the time, it was like, it didn't matter. It was like, it's cool. This was the statement. It doesn't matter.
well, it's interesting because you said that you've turned more. You're a better musician now than you were then. I loved what you were then. I love. I dug into a lot of some of your solo stuff recently after you said you were going to be able to come on. So dig in a little bit more into it. But then what I think really sparked me was because when I reached out to you, it was just about Louis XIV. I was like, this is what I want to talk about. But then I started to realize like how much you've done since Louis XIV.
Sure.
I mean, you have, first of all, Mindhunter, which is on Netflix. So
Yep.
you have composer to your catalog, you've composed a title track to a show that is known worldwide.
Well, I composed all of mine. I started working as I after Louis XIV, we basically broke up at sort of like the end of 2009 or somewhere actually the beginning of 2009. We just gotten fed up with, I think it was just too much touring. I'd been touring since I was a kid. I had like been in a band since I was 13 years old.
Oh wow.
Like, the whole time, always. Like there was 1 month I remember when I was like 18 or 19 that I wasn't in a band. And so that gets tedious after a while when every decision you make, like where you live, like how you live, what you can do, all this sort of stuff, you have to deal with other people. And at a certain point when you become a man, you're like, I don't want to fucking do, I love you guys, but I don't want to have to like just deal with it anymore. And so everybody kind of, I think, felt that collectively at a time and at that time. And so we just kind of like, we're just going to sort of break up or this or that. All sorts of shit happened. And I moved up to Los Angeles and I started producing records and started doing a bunch of records. And I'd been producing records during that time, because even before Louis came out, I thought I was going to be a producer. I just thought, ever since I was younger, ever since I picked up a guitar at 13, I thought, I would write songs instantly. I didn't care how other people wrote songs. I just wanted to write my own songs. It was my therapy. I had to express things. And then later on, it became more than therapy. I wanted to develop craft and all this, and I wanted to get better. So I came up to Los Angeles, started producing, and then David Fincher was a fan of Louis XIV and stuff, and asked me to do the trailer and the teaser for Gone Girl. And so I did that, and it was amazing. And it was like, we hired a choir and an orchestra, and worked out of Phil Spector's old room at Studio 3 where they did Pet Sounds, and nobody said no. And I was like, this is great. Nobody said anything. It was just like, I could do whatever I want, and it was great. And Fincher was so incredible to work with. And we got Richard Butler from Psychedelic Furs to sing this song that was like an old French song that he wanted a real dark version. He saw the perversion in me and said, I want that guy to do this. and we hit it off. And then it was from there, it was like, then he hired me to do an HBO show, and then Mindhunter. And now I'm doing a couple other things with him. And it just it started a relationship. But then from there, I also started doing lots of other things like the Fire Festival thing, movie on Netflix, and the Confession Killer on Netflix, and a Showtime show called Couples Therapy, and a film called The Buffalo Hunt, and another 3 things. I'm working on a Love, Death, and Robots with Fincher right now, and another 2 Netflix shows that are about to come out, things like that. So but it started me into film, and I loved it. I didn't have to write. And it became interesting to me.
How much different is it writing, going from being to do composer to like writing for Louis XIV? Because I know that from what I watched a documentary on it where it's like you actually have to watch the scene first before you put music to it.
No, I don't work that way though. That is a misconception. And even in the, I learned like very, very early when Fincher first hired me, he goes, how do you want to do this? You want to wait for picture? Or do you want to just like start now, and you start making music? And I read the scripts and stuff like that, but it was really just like get a vibe for it and then start making music,
Wow.
And for it, ruminate on it, think about it. I didn't need to see picture like to get vibe, to figure out what the sound of the show was going to be. And I said, well, how do you work with Trent Reznor and Atticus? And I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, so I was like, why? I want as much time as possible. He said, well, we usually start early, I said, well, let's do that one, because I need to figure out, I need a long leash, to like be able to figure out and to be able to fuck things up and explore and fail and all this sort of stuff, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I just then explored and started learning new things and developed my own tricks, because I didn't come to it the way other guys came to it. I had to find my own way, which was great. And I'm so super thankful for it, because I think it makes me very unique in my approach towards film composing. So by the time I actually would see picture, and Fincher's this way with everything that he hires me for, he'll hire me incredibly early. So by the time they're actually first get picture, they're utilizing my music. And then once I see
Wow.
picture, I write more and I tailor things to it and this and that. But they're so when they start editing things, because they start editing right away, they're editing and putting in my music. And then it becomes a tapestry. The problem with most filmmaking now is that they will temp in other people's music for a composer. So they'll pretty much do the whole film. They'll bring in music, other people's music that wasn't designed for that film, and then they'll give that to the composer, and then he's supposed to not hear that stuff that they've already put in there. And everybody's fallen in love with that music and this and that. Well, that doesn't work for me because, and I'm thankfully Fincher's smart enough to realize that. And then I try to convince everybody else that I work with to do it this way. And most of them do, where so the only time they ever see their film is with my music. And that then everybody gets used to it and it becomes an original thought, because if they put a piano in there, you can't unhear that piano. So you start going, well, I guess I'll put a piano. And that's the way most composers work. They pretty much chase temp is what that's called. And I bitch about it all the time. And I tell everybody, if you got temp in there, either take it out or don't hire me to do it, because I don't want to do it. I want to only do an original thought. And it's really important to me. It's a big thing that I talk about all the time and that composers talk about all the time. Most composers don't have the luxury of doing it that way. They get something that's already set in stone. Everybody loves from the studio. The director loves it. And then they got to change the music. And
Yeah.
it's so difficult. It's like somebody falls in love with a picture. Now repaint that picture differently, of course, but I'm supposed to love it the same. It's really difficult. So
It's
yeah.
interesting because I've interviewed a composer a couple weeks ago, and his process was like, yeah, I watched a movie, then I build it for it. But now that listening to how you say it, it's almost like you're taking a bigger role in it, because you're defining the imagery in your head by reading the script. You're making it your own by setting it in there. So it's like pieces of a puzzle coming together all naturally and organically. It,
Yeah.
it's super it's super
You're
smart.
you're collaborating, and then everybody's vibing off of that. That is truly the way it works. It's like everybody is vibing off of the music. On this Love, Death, and Robots short film I'm doing right now. It's the same way. I was talking to a composer that does most of it. I'm doing one episode, the one with Fincher, but and he was talking about. We were talking about it earlier today. It's just literally, it's like he's chasing stuff where I'm helping define it, and everybody hears it. Like the guys that are editing and filming and doing animation or actors and this and that, they're all vibing off the music early. They get to hear that stuff. They get to like kind of get into it. It becomes so much more a part of the tapestry. It becomes your I mean, it only makes sense, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to put somebody else's music from a different film or a different series or something like that into your thing. And then it just becomes more cookie cutter. And it's actually the problem with a lot of stuff, because from one score to the next, they're sort of the same. Well, the one thing I can say is that I never try to copy anything I ever do, and I never try to copy anybody. So it becomes I'm always trying to find an original place to go to, and then everybody else can vibe off of it. It's really the only way to go, and I hope more people in the industry will start to change. But so far they don't. But every time I get on board something, I tell them, if you're gonna hire me, way before picture, and don't ever edit to anybody else's stuff. Like only my music, because I want to do something original. Like if you're not doing something original, why are you even doing this? I mean, for me, it's not a job. It's my life. It's my life's work. It's just the same way as when you write for an album or something. You're trying to define that album, and that album you most of the time want to go to the same party, to have a sound, to have a cohesion. And that's what you try to do for film scoring. Yeah.
It's super intelligent and super smart, and it's super different, which I appreciate that. I appreciate the passion behind it too, because I think not only, or I mean, the passion that you're speaking behind what you've done in being as a composer and what came out with Louis XIV, it's pretty amazing. But I think that it also speaks highly about the people that you're working with. I mean, with David Fincher, but I mean, when you look at the laundry list of people you work with the Killers and Jet, New York Dolls, Burning Flowers, Wolf Mother, but one name that really sticks out to me, and I'm really curious how you worked with this person because he's probably one of the top three of my favorite artists of all time. So on this list, it says that you worked with David Bowie.
Sure. Well, David, the thing about him was, which was like the honor of my life, was in 2005. It was right after Beverly Secrets came out. He was doing one interview that year, and he didn't do very many interviews after this, if at all, I don't think. But he's doing one interview for Condé Nast, so all of Condé Nast, which they own all these you know, magazines like Vogue and Vanity Fair and all these things. I don't even know all that, but they own a million of them. And so he did one interview, and then it was on all of these, or a lot of these things. And he was asked, you know, what he thought of the Kaiser Chiefs. And his response was, oh, they're cool, but have you heard Louis XIV? And something about us being his favorite band. And, you know, it was like our favorite, like, new band, you know. I was just blown away, you know. It was like, oh my God. And I was like a little kid feeling like, you know, this guy, this is David Bowie. So, you know, he ultimately asked us to play his final show. You know, we played his final show that he ever played on this earth.
What?
And it was at the, God, what was that? It was called a Black Ball event. It was an event for a charity event for AIDS in Africa. And it was us, Alicia Keys, and him. And he asked us to play, personally asked us to play, wanted us to play. So we go up and play. It's actually a really funny story because, so we go out there, and it was actually a shame. He was sick during the show, so he only played 6 or 7 songs. And we would later find out he had cancer. And, but this was like sort of my, like, really introduction with Bowie. And he was so gracious and so kind and so awesome, amazing. But I remember you had this woman. I mean, I'm laughing because of the predicament I was in, but it was a very, you know, sad event where this woman was up from Africa who'd lost her whole family to AIDS. And she was giving this, you know, speech. And here I am supposed to go up and play. And it's, you know, we discussed the paper doll and Pledge of Allegiance, sex, fun, you know, after all, like, I'm sitting there pacing backstage and I'm playing with Bowie, and Bowie personally asked us to play. And I'm sitting there, you know, pacing back and forth going, I'm telling my manager, I just feel so awkward right now. Not that our music was all about sex. It really wasn't. It was just like a couple songs, but it was like that had like little playful little bits. And not that sex is bad. And it's sex in no way is bad. AIDS is bad, yes, but like, you know, we can still have AIDS and still have sex, and they can, you know, be different things. But it just felt strange. And it's one of these events where it's like, you know, $5,000 for a table and this and that. So here we go. Frodo, whatever his name is, the guy that played Frodo, introduces us, and I walk on stage. And all I see right in the front row is Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. And I'm fixated on it. And I go into Paper Doll. And I'm sitting there, you know, like, bang a gong, get it on. You don't have to do it, get it on. And I'm singing back and forth. And I'm just watching Tom Cruise. And I notice Tom Cruise does this. And he goes like this. And everything he did, Katie Holmes would shift and do exactly the same things. And this is way before we sort of knew all about the Scientology. I think this was before they were married and this and that. You know, it was just sort of like, I was just sort of fascinated by this, like these two that would like move in sync. And I remember getting to the end of the song. Like, I get to the end of the song, and I don't play guitar on that song. We were opening the set with it. And then normally I'd, you know, put the mic on the stand and go grab my guitar. And I remember I put the mic on the stand, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't remember singing a word. It was like when you're driving and you like go into autopilot and you go, oh my God, I just drove 5 miles and I've been thinking about something totally else. And I'm so amazed that I didn't crash. It was that same thing. And I'm thinking, did I sing the words right? Like this and that. And I was just like mesmerized by the whole thing. we were later on at the very end of the evening. Tom Cruise, I remember coming backstage, and he left through the backstage, and I'm sitting there talking to one of my idols, too, Tony Visconti, a great producer that worked with David on so many radical records. And me and Tony are chatting and this and that. Me and him were gonna work together on something later. We never did, but I wish we did. We just never did. But anyway, Tom comes back, and I remember him like shaking my hand. He's a short guy too, but I remember he was like, "Congratulations," and I remember thinking, "Why are you congratulating me?" I remember just getting fixated. Why? I mean, I guess like on your success or this or that, it makes perfect sense. But at the time, I was like sort of fixated, and anyway, David would call, and we would end up writing stuff, but like nothing ever gets like he held on to everything. I'd have no copies of anything, all that sort of stuff. And then, then he passed away. And it was just such a shame. But I actually only found out that we played his last gig ever, when he passed away. And it was really a shame. But yeah, just an idol and just so amazing. Such a brilliant man. And he was always so great at like reinventing everything he did from one record to the next. I think that's why he could tell within our stuff a little bit of like, we were putting on a face, sort of like, we were putting on something. Like, it was like, I think every performer has to do that, where you have to like, you have these routines, because really most guys just want to be back at the hotel room or on the bus or whatever it is. If you're lucky enough to have a bus, and you just want to watch, like some series on like your computer, and because you're binging it, because that's all you can do on the road is that, and order room service. And the last thing you want to do is get on stage, but you have to sort of like put on the boots, maybe have a glass of wine, get out there and perform, And so you have to kind of invent somebody, a bit of a character that can go perform every night, so that the real you could kind of be the one that's thinking about watching the end of that stupid series Lost, which, by the way, I did watch on tour one week, pretty much. I watched the entirety of it. It would drive me, like I'd stay up all night long watching that damn thing after it was like.
Please tell me that you were fucking aggravated as me when you watched the last episode and everyone's dead.
Oh, there was a whole season where I pretty much would scan through, like, because the way like I would do it was I would watch it all night long. I get in off of a stage or whatever, and after a little bit partying and this and that, then you get into your little coffin, which was like your bunks, and I'd put it on and I'd watch it until the sun came up. And I would sort of like sleep through, like I'd fall asleep.
Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Did we lose him?
Still there?
Yeah, I hear your voice. Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Somebody called in. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
It's on the phone. But no, it was terrible. The ending was terrible. I thought it was awful, but I hated it when there was a lot of holes in that one. Like all of a sudden, like that guy Jack is like, first of all, there's that blonde chick that he ends up with like later on, but she's like tormenting him when they first meet, and it's like, and then she's nice again. Like, what the fuck? She was awful. And then like all those, and then suddenly there's when they brought in those people from like it wasn't even, I don't even know if it was the others or if it was like another sect of people, but it was the Latina actor. I don't know what her name was, but she was like supposed to be this tough girl or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole season. It was just like, what the fuck? This is so ridiculous. Like, they were abnormally terrible to these people from the other side. It was just like a weird. There was so many things, and then also, and this is the last I'll say about Lost. The black smoke just disappeared after like the first season. Like everybody's scared of the black smoke, and then it's like it totally disappears. Like they got, like that was everything for the first season, and then it's like well, we overdid that one. We can't ever bring it up again. And I don't even think it was like they would throw it in like sprinkles to remind people. Oh yeah,
Or the fucking polar bear. What the hell is that about?
Oh god, the polar bear that would run. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Who would have thought that you could go from a conversation with David Bowie right into a terrible episodes of Lost?
Well, because that's what touring is about, and that's what's ultimately. I loved touring for a while, but because I loved being on stage and this that. But after a while, it gets to be just so much traveling, so much of that. There's so much dangerous stuff. You have these bus drivers. Kenny Rogers, bus driver, or Kenny Rogers, bass player in the '70s, was our bus driver for a while, and he was like a crackhead. And every night you'd be like, "What the fuck? I'm gonna die tonight." And I'm not kidding when I say he was a crackhead. He was like, I don't know if it's crack, it was crystal meth, or it was coke. We were playing in Nashville, Tennessee, or we didn't. We had the night off in Nashville, Tennessee, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to join and like play with some friends down on on Main Street. Come on down and watch me." We're leaving at 2:00 in the morning to drive like 8 hours to Memphis or wherever the hell we were going. And it was like, okay, cool. And we go to watch him like play with some guys, and he's drinking all night. This guy's driving us at 2:00 in the morning. He's just he was a great bass player. Keep in mind, I mean, he was killing it. But all night long, he's drinking. I remember looking at the guys go, "What the fuck? This guy's going to drive us back." We get back to the bus. He's there with some girl doing all sorts of drugs. And we're like, "Oh, we're going to drop her off like an hour outside of town." Like, I don't know if she was just some party girl, whatever it was. But we were so dumb, and we needed to be at that next show so bad that we didn't know what else to do. So we got in our bunks, sat there, like all night long, and hear the felt the thing and heard it go.
Oh, on the side of the road. Yep.
And hear this like girl cackling in the front seat, and it's like, oh my God. That shit, after a while, you go, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I think I spend my time in the studio making music, because if I keep on the road, I might not be able to ever, live, And there was enough of those moments where you go, okay, maybe I should stop. Maybe I should cash in my chips a little bit for a while. But
now we talked about Louis XIV, talked about being a composer. You did 2 years ago release a single, "They Like Me, They Love Me," which was solo work. Yeah. 2 years. 2019 was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Well, it was like in the winter fall of 2019. So it's technically we just
a year and a half. It's one of those things. But
whatever.
So you had said when I first talked to you, you said that you're looking to finish up your solo record now.
I am. I've pretty much finished. Like, I've written all this. So I'm looking up at the songs right now on the board right there. But I finished writing all the songs. It came to me like crazy. I broke up with my former fiance after 6 years, and I was brokenhearted as can be. And all I could do was put it into the music. It was literally like when I was 14 and my parents were going through a divorce, and all I could do was put it into songs.
Sure.
Same. I realized actually this year is like, that's why I got into guitar, is because I had all this like pain, from being a kid. When I was a kid, I was like, that's why I found I needed to express it. And so, but I realized I do the same stuff. And so suddenly I had all these songs to write, and I would just write them. And I think it's probably my favorite record of all that I've ever done. I mean, that's a great feeling, and hopefully it'll stay that way. Or probably the next record I'll do my favorite, and this and that, like always happens. But it's a great record. I love it. I think, I'm about 90% done. I just kind of have to like finish it, which is always the hardest part, like mix it and all that sort of stuff. Add that final little harmony that you want to do, or this little guitar bit, or, all this sort of stuff. But it's hard for me, I don't like write a song and then another song, then another song, and then go record it. I write a song and record it all at the same time. I've always done that. All the Louis XIV was like, you'd write and record all at the same time. You basically just go into the studio and the song would come about. Like you're just like a kid with Legos, just building something. And so, by the time I'd get the song 90% recorded, I'd write another one and then another one. And so you'd leave all these little things slightly unfinished. But it's basically done, and hoping to release it, in a few months. It's nowadays it's for me, like I do music, my songs and stuff, that's sort of what I do because I have to do it. I'm not doing it for money or for anything like that. The film work, I love to do it, but that pays me really well. So, but nowadays it's harder for artists. You get 10, 20 million plays on Spotify, and that makes you $15. It doesn't
Mm.
like it doesn't make money. So it's sort of like I don't know any other way to be. I never did it in the first place to make money, so I'm not now. I just do it because I'm an artist, and an artist makes art, and that's what we know how to do. And so I don't know exactly how I'm going to release it. I'm just trying to finish it.
Well, listen, man, I can't wait to hear everything. If you haven't heard, anyone who's listening right now, if you haven't heard They Like Me, They Love Me, it's across all streaming platforms. To listen to, definitely listen to it. Give it, if he gets $15 for 10 million listens, let's get that son of a bitch up to 100 million. Let's get this guy a pizza. Also, you can also check out his recording studio. You can go to departmentofrecordingandpower.com. I know that you have some services up there. You can also buy, if you want to even get him quicker to that $15, you can go to shop and purchase a single, go old school that way and download it. Listen, all of his work.
How do you even do that these days? I was talking about this the other day. How do you actually can you like, where do you buy stuff? I don't even know how to do that anymore. Do you
Dude,
do it on?
listen, I stream everything. I'm a sucker for it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
just, it's so easy, it's so convenient. But yeah, I will say this. What I typically do now is if an artist has merchandise, I'll buy that. Like Saint Vincent yesterday put out her new single, which is absolutely amazing. I said, listen, I'll go buy her $45 t-shirt because it supports her, and I would recommend that for anybody.
Absolutely.
Because it just makes the most sense. Like, just support the artist, because that's the way you're going to get new music, is by supporting the artist. So,
Yeah.
but hey, we have two questions that come across the board because I don't want to take too much of your time up. And Jason, listen, I can't thank you enough, man. This is
My
absolute
pleasure.
honor to speak to you. Your music's been a huge part of my life. My 5-year-old daughter knows way too many words from the best little kept secrets. So, but the best little secrets are kept. Jason, what are your favorite bands?
Well, that's a hard one, like, because you go through phases in life. There's certain records that I always come back to, like a lot of the things of like sort of like my youth that were like, I love Serge Gainsbourg. I don't know if you've ever, like, I love one record of Serge Gainsbourg, one that I listen to all the time, the Melody Nelson record. I love so much. Of course, I love David Bowie. I love T Rex. I love the Rolling Stones. Um, God, who else do I love? I love like certain records by people. I love like Ronnie, like my favorite record, one of my favorite records of all time is Ronnie Wood's I Got My Own Album to Do, and who else do I love? It's hard to say, Roxy Music I love Fela Kuti. I love so many, I love so many things. It's really just sort of like, what mood am I in? I love JJ Cale, like JJ Cale was a big inspiration to me. Ry Cooder, or different phases in my life. When I was a kid, I was really into like Generation X, which was like Billy Idol's first band when I was like 14, and just starting off in guitar and stuff. But do I listen to that record anymore? No, but I grew up. But it's a great record. But yeah, I have a huge record collection. From when I was a kid, and I would go down to I lived by two record stores, and I would go down and I would get 10 records every few days whenever I could find $10, and I would get 10 records out of the dollar bins. And there's guys that worked there that knew I would sort of like take the good version of the record and put it in the bad like I would interchange and then kind of give me a little wink. They knew me, like it was sort of like that. But I did it. I would go and get an education. Leon Russell's one of my favorite of all time. Leon Russell, I fucking love. He's one of my absolute favorites. But I would like, find something and discover like this guy played on this record and this guy played on this record. Oh, okay, and all that sort of stuff. So it's hard to say like who I love, but I love certain records. There's a song called Dolly by Nicky Hopkins that I listen to all the time that nobody really knows, but incredible.
Well, listen, Jason, first of all, once again, I can't thank you enough for taking this time to talk to me. I need, dude, I have so many more questions and stories to ask you. We are going to have to do a round two at some point. Because I reached out to the girl that I broke up with because of you, and I try to get her on the show. But anyway, that's a whole nother fucking thing. But Jason,
I want to know what happened in that conversation.
yeah, it'd be interesting. But listen, Jason, thank you so much once again. If you're listening on here right now, definitely check out departmentofrecordingandpower.com. Listen to Jason online, get those 10 million hits, buy his stuff. Go to his shop on the departmentofrecordingpower.com. You can buy his latest single. Keep an eye out or an ear out for his solo album coming out over the next few months. If it's on Netflix, and it sounds good, I'm pretty sure Jason has something to do with it, so thank him for that. You can definitely find him out on Instagram. That's what he likes. He doesn't like Facebook, from my understanding. We're going to keep it to that. And Jason, until next time, dude, thank you so much for coming on the Torah Fan Live.
Of course, my pleasure.
Dude, I can't thank you enough. Check us out online. Go to www.thetouringfanlive.com for our upcoming schedule. This show will be on all of our audio format versions tomorrow morning. And it'll be everywhere you listen to music and shit like that. Jason, thank you so much for coming on. Until next time, let me see, that's Jason. I'm Anthony. You've just listened to The Touring Fan Live.